announcements, and now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our commentators for tonight's presentation. As many of you know, Phil Edgell's father, Roy Edgell, started the Nature Vancouver Photo Contest back in the day when submissions were a box of slides. Phil is also a longtime member of Nature Vancouver, joining in 1958 and attending many summer camps over the years. He was employed with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans as a fish culturist and remains active with the Alberni Valley Enhancement Society. He was a 2024 recipient of the Nature Vancouver Davidson Award based on his restoration, preservation, and conservation efforts. Phil is also a published photographer with images appearing in the books Coastal Fishes of the Pacific Northwest and The Field Guide to Juvenile Salmon, plus the pamphlet format Field Guide to Common Fishes of the Pacific Northwest. Phil's quality images have been awarded recognition in past Nature Vancouver photo contests, and he is a current member of the Port Alberni Photo Club. Ron Brandner is a longtime friend of Phil's. He is a former elementary school teacher and a dedicated photographer. Ron is also a member of the Port Alberni Photo Club and maintains that membership despite having moved to Vernon, where he also joined the Vernon Photo Club. So Ron and Phil meet regularly to share photos and critique with one another, making them an excellent choice to once again comment on the 2026 Nature Vancouver Photo Show. So please join me in welcoming Phil and Ron, and I'll put it over to you, Murray, to get the slideshow started.
So, Joan, if I may, I'd just like to make a few comments.
Yes, go ahead.
Ron and I would, first of all, good evening, everybody, and it's good to see some faces and names I haven't seen in a long time. So Ron and I would like to thank Joan Lopez for inviting us to comment on the photo show this evening. We both learn and grow as photographers as we view and discuss all the special entries. And a special thanks to Murray Hendren and Denis Laplante for their technical expertise and all the time they put into preparing the show for us this evening. So just a few quick comments. As it is a photo show and not a photo competition, we thought it'd be worthwhile to let the photographers know how we chose the images to comment on. So there are 35 images for comment is the target, and that's really based on timing and not putting everybody to sleep by the end of it. Ron and I wanted to make sure that we commented on images from every photographer that entered, while at the same time balancing the images evenly across all the categories and spread through the full duration of the evening. So that was the approach used for selection. And I mentioned this last year, but felt it was worth repeating. Commenting or judging photography is very subjective. And so the comments and or suggestions that Ron and I make this evening are just that, subjective comments. If we offer suggestions in the form of edits, they are only related to what Ron and I may try if we were the author of the image. The only important thing is that you, the photographer, enjoy the experience and are happy with your images. And so I think with that, we're ready to go, Murray. Okay, so I'm going to comment on this first image. So I find this image to be a very strong composition, and through the evening, I'm going to read out some definitions which help centers me, and it's worth refocus me at times. So composition is simply the act of combining parts or elements to form a whole. And though there are multiple elements in this scene, three elements grab and hold my attention right away. The female, the lady on the paddleboard in the foreground, the man on the rocks left, and the cargo ship. So here we have a group of three forming a triangle, which tend to be strong compositional components. A good crop uses the rule of thirds for horizon and element placement. And the rule of thirds is a photographic composition technique that divides an image into a grid using 2 horizontal and 2 vertical lines, creating 9 equal parts. Placing key subjects or elements along these lines or at their intersections creates more balance, tension, and interest. So again, strong composition. My one suggestion would be, again, subjective. If I had this image, I might try to remove that boat on the right that is cut in half. And so there's a couple of methods you could use if you chose to do that. One's a crop tool. And I wouldn't suggest a crop because the balance, the crop is a good crop and the balance is wonderful. And there's also, for some of us who have editing programs, there's some new object removal tools. And so I would maybe pop that half boat out of there. So this is a lovely image that shows 2 people in nature enjoying the water and sunset. Well done.
Hi, Ron Bredner. Am I shot here? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Ron, we can hear you.
Can I just leave this thing on as it is right now? Just let it run through. So I'm not fiddling around with the switch. I'm trying to switch it off and switch it on.
Yeah, leave it on. That's a good idea.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, great. Well, thanks very much for the opportunity to make comments on the images here. I must say that it's been a great experience for me. This first image I want to comment on, I think, is when I first saw this image, it was my first expression of my impression was just a very quiet wow on this one. And I think it's very appropriate to have in the category man of nature. It looks like obviously it's a totem that's been carved by First Nations in the West Coast here. And it looks like a man figure on the bottom. The subject of this image, though, I think, and I'm looking at it from the author's point of view, is an invitation for all of us to explore in greater detail the history and culture of the totems. That's certainly what I was doing, and the subject of this image that led me to that conclusion was the moss that's on this beautiful specimen, this beautiful artifact here. And I'm reminded that this is a photograph of somebody else's art carving. And it's very appropriate to take an image like this. And I want to commend the photographer that took this for making it look so natural, so absolutely beautifully natural. Phil was talking about tools that we use to remove distractions, and one might, look at this image and say, holy crow, I'm going to get rid of all that moss on the nose and blah, 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 blah on images like this. And that would, of course, be totally inappropriate with this image. And that leads me to the point about the moss and the subject matter, which I think is the disintegration of this beautiful carving in nature, which is, viewed, the totem itself is viewed as a part of nature, and it has a natural life cycle, just like we do. And this is showing that natural life cycle in progress here. I want to draw attention to some of the techniques that the authors used to make this such a strong image graphically. And on the left-hand side, you'll notice there's on the edge of the totem, it's absolutely, the edge is perfectly parallel. This very narrow parallel band with the totem in perfect sharpness, the background appropriately out of focus. You can say the same on the right-hand side as well, a very narrow band, which gives this totem absolute dominance in the image. and it pops out of the image too, but subtly so, as I already mentioned. There's absolutely nothing I could offer the author of this image in terms of any kind of improvement to make it stronger. I think it's been very appropriately understated, and this is just a wonderful example of how to make an image of this particular artwork. Thank you.
And I want to step into this one. So the perspective used by the photographer here gives us a real sense of steepness and a bit of tension in this image. The hikers are watching their feet and using both poles and hands to descend. The diagonal orientation of the hikers is nicely framed by the lovely forest, and a good crop really centers our attention on the hikers. So I think this is a good job of portraying fit natural history members enjoying nature. Well done. I'll comment on this one as well. So the author's careful framing here has produced a strong composition, another strong composition. And I just wanted to talk about a foreground anchor. A foreground anchor is a prominent object or texture located near the camera lens that provides a visual entry point to the scene. So in this image, we have a real strong foreground anchor with that lovely curving row of trees in the foreground. From there, the glacier with its complementary repeating curving lines guides us up through the image to a nice soft sky. The mountains bordering the glacier add a nice balance to the image, further strengthening this composition. Just some suggestions, again, subjective suggestions. I might try and lighten that row of trees in the foreground. Is there a key element? Maybe bring out a little more detail. And there, often I know when in some of these alpine camps where there's forest fires nearby, the image just it has a slight haziness. So if I was editing this, I might try a dehaze tool, or adding a little bit of contrast might give the image a bit more pop, because that sort of hazy background is competing with this very sort of crisp foreground. And a little bit of contrast may add some texture to that lovely sky in the background. But a great composition in this landscape, strong image.
Hi, I'm going to step in here. The subject of this image is man's use of nature for recreation, and the subject is a beautiful lake in BC here, Ruby Lake. I think I can't understate the importance of nature, and I think this image says that it is so important to our well-being to have places like this to go to. You'll note that the impact is very bright. The lighting the authors used is very bright. It's very cheery. It's calm water in this particular case. Everything is coming together to make us all just kind of want to go on vacation here. And that's why, there was, I talked about getting rid of stuff earlier that there might have been an immediate, an initial for a brief, short period of time, and an impulse to get rid of some of the distractions, the wharf on the one side, the sign on the island, and whatnot. But then I thought, you know what? I don't think that's appropriate in this case here. This is man's use of this of nature for its benefit, and I think it's appropriate to leave all of that things in there. I noticed that the author, in terms of the graphics of this image, the technical part of it is the composition, rather, that the island is central to this image, and it's surrounded by some background, and my eye flows from the left to the right along that little fog bank there. I think it's a very astute, by chance, obviously, but I mean it's still a wonderful aspect of this image that keeps my eye moving around. And that doesn't happen all the time, that you get something like that little fog bank like that happening. A very, very like a good shot indeed. Technically, I mentioned it's tack sharp. As a matter of fact, when I blew it up on my screen, you can actually see on that white sign on the island there, it's got a number 10 on it, and it led me to research Ruby Island to find out what that 10 meant. And I thought it was the speed, or maybe the that you're allowed to go, or the horsepower on the motor. I couldn't find any information on that, but sometimes these images, like the first one I spoke about it as well, led me in this to take a look and do some deeper digging. I think in terms of suggestions on this thing, on this image here, what I can suggest is maybe as a nitpick, take a little bit off the left side to just better center the island just a little bit. But that would be pretty much all I would say. This is a job well done. Thank you. Okay, the next one is this guy.
Okay, Phil again. So with good control of exposure here, the author has created for me a lovely peaceful mood. The low filtered sun gives us lovely warm colors. The sandstone transitions from cool to warm colors, and the sky transitions to warm to cool, adding another interesting dimension to the scene. The textures and curves in the sandstone, highlighted by the orange glow of the sun, lead our eye up along the shore and into the setting sun and trees. The centered horizon line works with the strong diagonal of intersecting trees. The blue sky has some empty space, as the author wanted to include the tree upper right, I believe. This does not impact our viewing, as the many strong elements below hold our attention. So lovely, peaceful image.
Oh. Bill.
Okay, I'm up again. So here's another scene that has a lovely sense of calm, with the glassy still water and the misty background. The image is sharp, but there's also a nice softness to the scene. Three parallel lines of grass combine with a parallel line of green foliage to strengthen the mid-ground composition. The beaver lodge, a triangle, and the tree, strong vertical line, are strong subjects that dominate the scene. the lovely reflection adds even more to this beautiful image. With so many interesting elements in this photograph, I found my eye wandering all over this nice capture. And again, the subjective suggestion is I might consider writing in that midground, and more specifically, the key elements, rows of grass, the row of green vegetation, and the beaver lodge, because there's lots of lovely detail in there that I might try and highlight a little more. So a trip to Pitt Lake would be on my short list if my home was closer. Great composition, lovely.
Hi there. I'll jump in here. Let's take a look at this. Hey, isn't this a peaceful, very, very peaceful night image here? The subject here is, to me, is just a stunning example of the beauty of nature. In fact, nature outside of our planet. Right here, we got the moon contributing to the beautiful lighting and the beautiful patterning in those clouds there. The subject matter is a lake somewhere. I'm not sure where this would be, nor does it really matter. Excuse me. In terms of composition, I think this is a very strong image because you got the trees pointing up towards the sky, which leads you to this wonderful pathway of patterns that are not totally dominant. I just loved it. It's almost a texture, a pattern combined here. Very beautiful, and you notice on the top it's bluish color, and then there's this wonderful, as you go down to the horizon, it changes into this lovely soft warm tones down there, where it's, instead of a pattern up there, you get a different pattern on this, likely is a smooth lake. This is to me was a multi-sensory image as well. I thought it was, I was thinking of sort of a spring. It may be in the winter could be snow on the side there, but you would smell the smells here of the trees would be, if it's in early spring, would be significant. There could be some sounds of birds maybe chirping or an owl hooting or something like that. It's very, very such an appealing image to me. In terms of the technical aspects of it, I think it's great that the trees, the author has made the trees really sharp. I mean, because they do the job to hold your attention. But the main primary focus of these trees is two things. One's to point to the sky and show that. The other is to frame like the lake down below and the moon. And the one suggestion I would make, that it's hard to comment on this because I'm not sure, of course I wasn't there and I don't know what is there, but it would be perhaps to move so that the moon is a little more centered, and not being pillared by that tree there in the center of the image. Might give it just a touch more balance. And you notice that the background on the left side is a little heavier than the trees on the right hand side, the dark areas. It's a nitpicky point, but I think it's been just a marvelous capture. Thank you. Ponds of Spring. 28. Okay, this is my image again. Now, for me, this was a very different image. It was one that, in terms of coming up with subject, although it's beauty of nature, obviously, the subject matter, yes, and I understand it was a pond, but I couldn't quite see it. This is when I had to relax into. Some images I just have to take time with. And so this one came to me slowly, but it came profoundly at the end. This is one that was very much one that just begged to be given a little bit of time, like a fine wine, you know what I mean? So, I love this kind of image. I learn from uh, observing and trying to understand images like this. Like I know this is an important image to somebody, and so it motivates me to give it due patience, do it and due attention. So over the period of time I had this, I went back and looked, back and looked, and both Phil and I had a great discussion on here. And congratulations to the author of this for a very great image. Okay, so moving on now. I see a lot of light on the left-hand side and some more dark on the right-hand side in this mirroring here. Now I almost see two images. And that happens sometimes, even in my work too. When I do images like this, I'll see it from different ways. And I see nothing wrong with taking an image like this and maybe making different iterations of it. I think, you make a copy of the original image and then go and fly at it and see if you can come up with something different. So what I would suggest doing first off, I would think it would need to be lightened a bit overall, so we could see some more detail on the ground area, particularly on the right-hand side. And I might even go be as bold as say, look, let's just for the first iteration, just chop it just to the right of center, just the right of center down to where we've got that dark area down below, so that we have a mirrored reflection that more or less is the same depth from on the upper part to the bottom part. You can see here the bottom part dominates here in this particular image, and just see what we've got there. And the reason I'm mentioning that, I may or may not do that. It depends what I would see in the right-hand side when I brighten it up. The only other aspect of this which I find intriguing, and I really don't know how to address it, would be you got streaky lines on the right-hand side. On the other side, there's these wavy, beautiful, pillowy kind of effect as well. Two different feelings for me in this image as well. So this is one that I would absolutely delight in working with myself. I think it's a wonderful image. Great potential in this one. I don't know what else to say. I hope if the author's got an editing system, man, this could be a lot of fun. Take care. Thanks very much. See the trees, 34. Yeah, hi, this is my image too, through the trees. Um, I think this has been well exposed. I think it's nice and sharp where it needs to be. I think part of the problem, there's a bit of a problem with this one for me, and that is that if you're looking through the trees, I see more outside looking through the trees than I do looking through the trees. I think basically what I would urge the author of this to do is to get a little closer and get rid of the fence and whatnot in there. And then I think you've got some beautiful branches that would frame part of the buildings, which would then look larger in the image, and may make this should make this a stronger image. When you do that, by the way, I think you need to take a look at the horizon of those buildings. It looks like it's just a little off off center, off level rather. So again, another image that is to me just so delightful because there's many ways of looking at it. You could even maybe take a look at cropping that. You got it in portrait right now, cropping it in landscape mode and see what that looks like when you look through the branches there. If that gives a little bit more prominence to those interesting structures in the background. Yeah, thank you. Phil?
I'm gonna make some comments on this one here. So here the author has done a good job with the crop, giving the interesting vanilla leaf prominence in this image. The plant has an intricate texture and is brighter than the background, also serving to focus our attention on the plant. The background is sharp and contains many elements that can sometimes distract us from the main subject. However, there are repeating parallel lines and patterns in this background, that do not distract the eye. So, and I have some suggestions with this one as well. I would try either, there's some two grass sticks upper left and one bottom right, and I might try subduing the highlights in the grass twigs there, just so they're not so much of a distraction. Now, Ron and I often do what we call gardening, and so we sometimes will remove, if I see something that I think is going to be a highlight, I'll sometimes remove it from the image. And sometimes I'll take an image, I'll check it, and if I see something distracting, I might go back, remove it, and re-photograph the image. When Ron and I are shooting some close-ups and there's distracting backgrounds, one option is to open up to the widest aperture, and this reduces the depth of field, often softening or muting the background. But lovely portrayal of this decaying vanilla leaf.
Hmm. This is I'd like to comment on this image, please. This is was a very interesting image for me to take a poke at because a comment on because I'm actually going to challenge the author of this just a little bit here. As it stands, when I first looked at this image, and Phil and I talked about gardening, how we get rid of distractions, you know. And by the way, I stopped gardening with Phil because he always made me carry the rake. But over here, if we were to leave this image alone, a major distraction for me would be the building on the upper left, and that's an awful lot to try and get rid of. However, what I did do was say, okay, let's just take a look at that from a different perspective. And I thought, well, in the previous category, it was man's relation to nature. And when I put that in my noggin, I thought, oh, well, I can leave that in there now with that in mind, because here you've got people that are going to be looking down at this particular flower. And if I was to move to Vancouver, any densely populated area, I would be really appreciate having a park-like setting like this to look at. So I think there's, for me anyway, and I'm the viewer, don't forget, like I'm the viewer, and that's my immediate and honest impression of this. Then we could just leave that alone. There it is. If it's a workplace, it doesn't matter. Commercial building doesn't matter. People having a cup of coffee in the spring would just absolutely adore looking at this tree. So the tree would be providing terrific comfort. Now, as far as the technical qualities of this image, it's very, very good. It's nice and sharp. You know, the magnolia blossoms are very sharp. It fades off properly to the background, and you can see the blossoms of the cherry trees behind it are out of focus, but that's perfectly appropriate. The magnolias themselves are just a little bit underexposed, and it's because this is backlit. You can see by the bright area in the back that it's a bright day, and that's fine. But what I would suggest is just putting a little more pop into those color by just coloring brightening up the magnolias a little bit, and then maybe seeing if you can get just a little bit of brightening up the tree trunk area there to get a little bit of texture in there. But this is a very strong image. Certainly for me, I had to move a couple of years, and if we had to go into the city, boy, I'd be looking for a tree like this to hunker down by. Thanks a lot. So the next one is White Trilliums.
I'll comment on this one, Murray. So there's great detail captured in this colorful lily here. The photographer's positioned his camera so that the stem, leaves, and flower are all in the same plane, keeping the entire plant sharp, and that can be difficult. And I'm just speculating or guessing that the author may have stacked this image to increase the depth of field and maximize the depth of sharpness, given the depth of sharpness there. I just wanted to read you something. So there's included in some cameras, but now in photo editing programs, there's a thing called photo stacking. It's a technique where multiple images of the same subject taken at different focus distances, called focus stacking, or exposure stacking, are merged in post-processing software to create one final image with a greater depth of field, higher resolution, or reduced noise. So that may or may not be the technique there, because this lily is sharp from front to back. Their soft light and good exposure control, as flowers and leaves can be reflective, often giving us glares or blown highlights. So good job there. It looks like nice soft light. The beautiful soft green bokeh serves to isolate the lily and focus our attention on this beautiful specimen with no distractions. And the author may or may not have another technique I talked about earlier. I talked about stopping down to mute backgrounds. Another technique is choose a specimen that has some space in the background, which is another method of muting background distractions. I always, I'm going to nitpick here again. I might, with my image, I might consider removing the soft leaves bottom left and bottom right, but are really small. But in the end, a beautiful image of this lovely specimen.
I am jumping in here on these little beauties. It's my first impression of this. It's brought a little tear to my eye here. I can't tell you how many hours Phil and I have spent down in the estuary photographing these beautiful, beautiful plants. I think this is a lovely rendition of these. They are difficult to photograph and get the highlights controlled, as well as particularly in those petals there. So I think the author's done a good job trying to do that. Overall, with this thing, I would make a couple of comments. So it's really well spaced and it's given a great deal of canvas area here. So the level of detail is lovely, and it goes from it's been well, like the focus is great on this, and it's separated from the background appropriately. Really nice. As far as the lighting goes, you got what appears to be sort of sunny soft on the coming in through the trees. And I remember if this is the same kind of spot where we used to kind of photograph, there's a canopy up above and lots of spotlighting. But I was also drawn to that lovely, because of the strong light on this, the abstract shadow underneath that petal I found very, very interesting, very as well. Now, nothing much to critique on this image. I think I look at the background on the left and the background on the right, and I see a difference in busyness. It's a little busier on the left-hand side, a little darker too. So overall, I think I might crop in a little bit to try and get rid of some of the busyness on the left-hand side. And then I might try and cut out some of the got a couple of stems coming out the back of the lily on the left, and then perhaps using a brush, if you have the editing software, try and tone down some of the brighter highlights in that left leaf there. Yeah, I'm going to be sorry to see this go off screen. Thank you very much. You have to be careful now. Okay.
And I'll comment here, Ray, please. So here the authors provided another very strong composition. So in this image, our main subject, the saxifrage, is beautifully framed by colorful, patterned, and textured rock. The row of green running diagonally through the foreground adds strength to this photo. Okay. The author has also shown us the alpine or subalpine environment that this saxifrage grows in, a perspective not often seen with this low-lying plant. A somewhat dark and moody background contributes to the foreground pop. The strong foreground framing suggests to me that the author didn't want more width, and as a result, the camera format just clipped that mountain peak upper left. So a suggestion I might make is shoot a little wider, capturing the peak, and then you can crop back in on the sights to maintain this strong composition in the foreground. Shooting a little wider than needed leaves more options when editing, a technique that I often forget, and I often wish I'd shot just a little bit wider, because you can always crop in the sides you don't want. So yeah, beautiful landscape, very interesting perspective. Well done.
I'll make a comment on this one. So this is a beautiful example of springtime flowers in a field. It's very solid image. It's well balanced. It's made of two basic rectangles. A big one that shows the foreground, it heads off towards the background of the flowers. Then there's a smaller rectangle for the background of different bushes on the very back. So it's got a very balanced and a very an easy composition to allow you to enjoy the flowers. There's no distractions here, branches and trees and things like that in it. I like the depth of field that we've got established here, where you got very strong focus on the front of the image, where the yellow flowers in particular are nice and brightly lit, and then as you go back again, it fades off and focus a little bit to a gentle softness, but you never lose the perspective of what's actually there. So it's a very nuanced control, and even the bush area there is slightly soft, but it doesn't interfere with the enjoyment of this image at all. When I'm looking at the lighting here, and it seems to be a little lighter on the, there's a patchy light a little bit going through it, and that's very appropriate. I just watch where my eye wants to go, and I find my eye wanting to follow the yellow flowers through this image. It's almost like I'm walking through the field, catching up with the yellow flowers on the back, curves over the right, almost like that classical S curve going on here. And so it's a meandering kind of a feel to this image, which I think gives it a lot of charm. I do, as a suggestion in this image, I might take a look at just adding just a little more contrast in the back. Perhaps it seems to be a little hazy back in there. I'm not sure how that would, like, again, it's a suggestion. When Phil and I do these things to our images, we do it. If we like it, we keep it. If not, it's basically experimental, for us. And but that's one suggestion. The other would be to crop off these purple flowers in the bottom, so they give a little space of green there for our eye just to gently lead into this image instead of going straight down to the very bottom of the frame here. And I think that might make the journey a little more leisurable. Very pleasing. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm speaking again here. And wow, stop the buses, hold the horses. Take a look at this. This is a great image to, I think, to a great instruction image. It certainly was for me too. I had to look at this image for a while and just relax and see what's really grabbing my attention here. Now, it's obvious that it's going to be the Amanita mushrooms there. Phil and I photographed these before too, and they're not always easy. You notice the stems are nice and white. There's maybe some light's been popped in there. I'm not too sure. And also, I noticed that the angle of shot here, it makes my back twitch a little bit. This is an excellent low shot on this to give maximum visual appeal to the gills on the bottom of this thing as well, of the first mushroom. You notice how it's nice and crisp leaves on a wet leaves on, and your eye goes around. You go back, and there's a little wee stick up there, but it's not a distraction at all. There's no distractions at all. This is a extremely clean surrounding that just gives this mushroom such pop. You go straight back to the background on this, and what do we see? If your eye goes straight up from the mushroom, you land at a big tree. I mean, the balance on this image is phenomenal, right? The big tree's right in the middle. You got a little nice vignette of trees on one side, and on the others, we know this is in the fall appropriate. Look at the colors. Look how it's out of focus just a little bit, but it's still left in focus enough for us to enjoy the shapes back there, the colors back there. You can smell these leaves. You can maybe hear this. Again, this is another sensual image. I wish I had this the skill and the talent to offer some advice to this to make this image stronger, but I simply got nothing. I'm left speechless. So thank you very much.
And I'll comment on this one, Murray. So I mentioned at the beginning of this evening that, it's an opportunity for Ron and I to learn and grow. And so for this image, which is a lovely abstract, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and speak to it. So the first thing I'd like to do is just read a definition. So abstract, as it relates to fine arts, is emphasizing lines, colors, generalized or geometrical forms, especially with reference to their relationship to one another. So in this image, I see strong textures and lines in the wood and multiple triangles. The elements in this image fit together so nicely, it reminds me of a jigsaw puzzle. The resulting geometrical form is very, very pleasing. This is another image that my eye wanders all over. I can spend a lot of time looking at this image. Now, I talked a little earlier about distraction. So, suggestion in the upper left, we have a little branch sticking into the screen. So that's one that I may just no break the branch, but I may just have somebody hold that out of the way or pin it back with a stick, just so it's not a distraction in my final image. And a minuscule nitpick at the end is a small crop, a very small crop on the right hand side, so that I match the spacing from the end of the branch to the edge with the left hand side. And I think it gives you even a little more balance. But gee, very, very strong, very interesting and strong composition. Well done.
I'm commenting on this image here. Yes, this is a very beautiful beautiful insect here. This swallowtail. Now, Phil and I have spent a lot of time on flowers too, and we can both appreciate how difficult and how patient you have to be to get quality images like this one. Excuse me. When I look at this image, I'm immediately drawn right into the body of the insect, and I'm aware that there has been some work done on the body, the main body of this, to brighten it a little bit, which is appropriate. Usually we find in bright light there's going to be a shadow area in there. So this looks, however, I think this looks very, very natural indeed. But congratulations. And again, looking straight on, not always easy to get down and get this particular um, um, attitude in an image where you're looking right at it. Beautifully done as well. There are a little bit of highlights I might want to try and deal with in the purple flowers in the foreground there, and I might if I could control them a little bit, I would. Because then they kind of take a little bit too much attention, I think. But I must say I love the background in here. It's out of focus, but it's not. Is there still lots of detail? Sorry, you can still see some rough shapes in there. You can see some color in there. It gives a great idea what this garden environment looks like. It absolutely complements this wonderful specimen indeed. Now, there are a couple of niggles like Phil and I like to niggle. We really do. At the bottom, you've got a couple of purple flowers here, or parts of flowers. I'm not really sure what they are, but I think, don't contribute too much to the image. I would try and crop them out. So I'd just take a little crop out and get rid of them, and it would give a little less platform for the insect to rest on. But I think that would be appropriate. And if you took off the left of when you take off the left of the wing, cut down from there and crop out. Don't take any off the right hand side. It leaves the insect a little more room to move into, because that's the area that it's into the space that it's facing. But overall, extremely pleasing. Another fond memories of a well planted garden. Thank you. Hi, this is my image to comment on, this caddisfly. Um, Very interesting photograph. I mean, it's not the bland color and the wow, um, you know, composition of the other large things we've been looking at. The caddisfly is very small in this frame, and it's what intrigued me about this image. And yet it's making a big splash. It's the circles that created by the caddisfly that drew my attention to it. And also, I must say, in terms of structure of this, you got the reflections of the circles on the surface on the bottom of the pond there too, which complement it and even as they intersect. So graphically and this is a very, very pleasing image. Of course, what draws to my attention is, and what the subject of this may not be the caddisfly, but the life cycle of the caddisfly. What's going on in here? This is showing some behavior of the insect, this flapping, what's going on. So this image here sent me back to school. I had to go back and take a look and try to find out what I could about caddisflies. And I discovered that, so the question I was asking is, what are caddisflies doing on the surface of the water? We know that they lay their eggs and they spend most of their pupa stage on a lot down below, but they return to water sometimes. Apparently, as adults, I think, they could be drinking, they could be laying eggs. Some do, some don't. So there's still questions I have about this image, which would keep me going if it was mine to make sure I found out exactly what's going on in there. But yeah, just I don't think I'd change a thing. I don't think I would crop in. I think these big, intersecting circles are important. I think it's and to think this big show has been created by this little insect is to me quite fascinating, actually. I think a great capture. Yes, thank you. Oh, this is lovely. Oh yeah, get some great stuff.
Would I'll make some comments on this one, Murray. So this image for me has stunning visual impact. The author's taken advantage, I think, of some nice light, bringing out the strong colors, and the flower's petals all guide us into that to that spectacular bee. The brilliant green bee set against the surrounding reds really pops. Tight framing has left no room for any distractions. The colors behind the red and orange petals are complementary, and the yellow pollen sticking to the bee and flower also add interest to this image. The author has given us a huge depth of sharp focus, and I'm guessing that this also may be a stacked image. However, there's also he's made an effort to have a fairly level plane by the looks of it. So this image to me is as technically perfect as one can get, and provides a real wow factor for me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. Hmm. Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on this one. This is another image reminiscent of many hours in the garden that Phil and I spent together as well. What a great capture bee and the butterfly, both sharp, both sharp. You know, it's one thing to get two of them when they're on a flower and they're kind of moving in the same speed, but I know from experience how fast these little beasties fly and how tough it can be. So you have many hours of time, or sometimes, you know, the more you're out there, I found it's just sheer luck and rapid fire and check later and see if I got them. But it's a great capture. I think that it speaks to the shutter speed that the author of this image has been using, that the bee is so nicely captured. It speaks to the author too. They have to stop the depth of field that they're using to keep these insects in focus, and yet blur the background sufficiently to give a context, but not overpower the image. I think the only thing I would suggest in this image, and I think it's a fairly important word. This needs to be. I would experiment with lighting on this. There's a couple of ways of looking at it. You can take a look at doing a broad, brightening of the whole image, or you can try selective and see what suits you. But I really think that the magnificence of the insect gets lost a little bit because it's not bright enough. I think I would try just brightening them up separately and see what happens. But a very, very lovely image. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Next one, Canis Fire. 82. Yeah, let me comment on this one, please. This is another example where the subject is animal behavior, and the subject matter is a squirrel in this case, as opposed to the caddisfly. But still, I mean, I think the author had an intent to make this look rather humorous. Which it is. I had a good laugh when I saw this, partly because I mean it's I've never seen the number of three of these acorns at one time, and for the acorns to be in such a wonderfully symmetrical design is something else. And that color green really pops them out as well. Absolutely, absolutely crazy. Just a wonderful shot here. So this speaks to me of somebody being prepared with their camera. I mean, these little critters come along and they're not going to stand there pose very long for you. That's for darn sure. So being ready is very important. And one thing that Phil and I both have a habit of doing is checking our cameras before we start. If we're going to be out in the woods, make sure we got appropriate shutter speed, everything's good, the camera's good to go. So when we see something like this, it's just basically point it and shoot, and we know we've got, with our autofocus taking care of the rest of it. But look at how the depth of field here works. Again, it's so important in these images, and I'm so pleased to see so many people using it. Where here you've got the depth of field so that the face and the front part of the squirrel is tack sharp. You can see its claws. I mean, you can even see its whiskers, and then it fades off towards the tail, which is fine. It's not that important. Now, I know when you take a shot like this, that you haven't got a chance to say, Mr. Squirrel, move over a little bit because there's some distractions on the right, because you can see the green. The green there is a little bit distracting. But what I did do with this image is I blew it up on my screen just to take a look at it closer. And what surprised me was when I did that, then the whiskers kind of popped out a lot more than they do when it's close. So I would be inclined to move in a bit closer to this little fella anyway, and it would ease some of the distraction on the right hand side there. And I think you might, if it's humor after, it looks even funnier with these whiskers popping out. It's nice and sharp there. It is just grand. Yeah. Thanks very much. Hmm.
Oh, and I'll comment here, Murray, please. So this is quite a dramatic image for me. The dark clouds signal a possible storm coming with wind whipping the pony's manes. Good exposure control brings out the warm colors in the sky, seemingly reflected on the ponies, adding to the strong mood. Good depth of field gives us sharpness from front to back, and that's important here with that beautiful sky in the background. The authors used a crop to further focus our attention on the ponies and strengthen the composition. And again, I think the suggestion I might have for this image is that a small crop left side, leaving less space on the left side than the right. And the reason for that, it might help in leading the moving horse right. And subjectively, to me, gives it a slightly stronger balance. But again, very subjective. And I, you'll probably note that I mentioned cropping quite a bit because it's a very good tool to alter your composition. Just when I'm editing at home, I have two pieces of paper that I use just to try crops, move them in and out. And I find that simple crops can have a huge influence on the composition. But this is another sort of one that Ron and I spent a lot of time looking at, and it's there's a lot to take in here. So another wow image. Well done.
Beautiful light. Yeah. I'll comment on this, please. Yeah, so this is a tough shot to get in Vernon. One that I kind of, we miss the West Coast, my wife and I, not an awful lot. But what's really interesting in this image is, I mean, the author's leaving us. There is no. It's very clear what the subject matter is here. It's very clear where this is, and this is an interesting one too, where I think the subject matter is the blood star. The actual subject is the behavior of this blood star, because you've got these tentacles that typically they'd be straight out. It's my experience anyway. So this is kind of an unusual positioning for me. And this sent me back to school again. I looked up the blood star because I didn't know too much about them, and indeed they can. I think they can flip themselves over. They can, they're maybe a bit more active than other starfish, perhaps, but definitely they can. So this again is showing behavior. The author's been showing us where it is. It's at tide level. You get barnacles up around it, and look again how the focus is on the blood star, then fades off in the background where it's out of focus, and focus fades, and it's soft up there too. Notice it's soft, misty kind of light, very appropriate for the West Coast, but still enough to give us an idea of the landscape that's there. I think the one thing about this is and at least on my screen anyway, that it's soft on the it's either an out of focus problem or a blur problem. There's something with those front feet, legs rather, that are not quite sharp. So it's also, like, you can see it's out of focus in the foreground as well. So I'm not sure if this is a focus issue. But I know cameras handle focus differently. Sometimes Phil and I both use what's called back button focus, where you can move the camera the focal point on the camera down, focus it with the back focus button, move the camera back up, and it'll still stay on focus where want to do it. So, it's an interesting technique that works for us if you understand what I'm saying there. But again, this is one with it. Unfortunately, it does need to get that sharpened up to make to because the punch is there, but you look forward and look into it, and then you say, "Oh, okay, there's a little bit of an issue." Small. It's an easy fix. Just one of when you're out in the field. Takeaway from this one is that as much as I can anyway, when I get something special like this, I try to do a little in-camera peekaboo and a little chimping there to see, make sure everything's ducky-do. And the other takeaway is to maybe in a situation like this, and I often do this, is to take several iterations of the same subject, and I'm surprised at how sometimes just little differences can make a big difference in the end. So thank you very much for this.
Well, I'll take this one, Murray, please. And so this nice composition, this is a nice composition as all the elements support the main subject. The delicate flowers curl around and nicely frame the delicate fawn. The dark background also serves to highlight the fawn's face. There's lovely detail showing texture and color in the fawn's face and ears. Just an interesting. I'm not sure if that's fur in the background behind the fawn. Is that mum resting, or just a question there? So some things that I think may or may not help this image is I might possibly lighten the face and eyes a little bit of the fawn, which might give us a little less competition with the bright flowers in the foreground. And I also might just tone down the highlights in the flower top left. It's quite bright and somewhat pulls my eye over a little bit away from the deer. If the author so chooses, you have an editing program, I might sort of take the highlights out of that flower. There's new AI programs. I might even consider taking that one on the left right out. But the circle of delicate flowers nicely frame the deer. And then I'm going to add my little nitpick here, and that's on the bottom left. There's 3 petals coming into the frame, and top right a few grasses. You might consider removing those with a spot remover or something like that. But this is a lovely capture of this delicate fawn.
Oh. Yeah, I'd like to comment on this one, please. So this is another image that's showing the subject is animal behavior, and the subject matter here is the Arctic fox. And I think this is a very compelling image, and it's because of the attitude of this fox. Look at him very intently staring directly at the camera in a crouched position. This is a very important, probably a very important lesson. It's learning how to do so for 2 reasons. So it can find, crouch up to prey and get something to eat, and also to escape predators that would be going after it as well. So this is, for us, it's a very cute, beautiful, lovely exposed image. But really what it's doing there, I think, is part of it's a very important behavior of the bird for of the pup for its survival. Yeah, it's structurally the images composition wise is very strong. The pup is in the center, takes up a significant area in the frame, so you get a good look at it and a look at its the characteristics and look. Structurally too, if you look at the ears and the nose, there's a triangle going on in there, which really helps us again focus on the face of the bird. You look around and there's not those compelling angles to draw our attention to. Yeah, as a minor detail, you look in the left there, you got an out of focus purple flower, and in the bottom left you got some distraction there. Behind the pup, you got this could be a dandelion weed or something popping out behind it there, which is a bit of a distraction, being at it that is so bright, and the background is so dark on that. Just just for aesthetic reasons, I would just do a general crop, just crop in a little closer on this and get rid of those, and then I think that would really increase the intense look of this pup. Very nice. Thank you very much.
No, same one.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So I'll make a comment here, please, Murray. So this is a great capture of a fast-moving subject. The photographers provided a nice perspective, low and level with the eagle, which is you don't often see that. Even with the low perspective, we see parts of both wings. Um, the low light and dark background set the mood. Good exposure with difficult whites and darks on the subject. A fast shutter speed has frozen the subject. Um, Complementary background further isolates and focuses our attention solely on the eagle. Um, and so it's of interest. So what's that eagle carrying? Is that a piece of kelp for nest building, or is it the skin of a salmon carcass? So that adds, additional interest to this image. And just, to a lovely image, one more nitpick. I might look at trying to lighten the eagle's underside to see if we could pull out some detail. And that's, I mean, given the lighting and the shading by the wings, very difficult. But a quick check of the histogram will let us know if there's any detail to be recovered. But well done and impressive image.
No, that's nice. There you go.
Okay, I'm up again. Murray, I'll comment on this one. Uh, so this beautiful photo tells a story here, and I'm going to give you my interpretation of the story, and it may differ from the author's, but just remembering that I wasn't there, the author was. But anyway, Western grebes flick water with their bills as part of an elaborate courtship display called dip shaking, The behavior is a key component of their mating ritual, often serving as a precursor to their famous rushing ceremony, where they run across the water's surface. And if I've got that wrong, my apologies to the author. So this is a tack sharp image with great control of darks and lights given the sun's direction. The fast shutter speed has frozen the bird and water droplets. The lovely bokeh background matches the foreground and further highlights the subject. The red eye is prominent. The photographer's low water level capture also adds strength to this image. The crop and or framing provides room for the water droplets and the greaves gaze right. So this is another image to me that's as technically perfect as you can get. Good job creating a strong image and again, a wow factor for me. Beautiful.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, this is lovely. Mm. I'd like to comment on this image, please. Years ago, when our camera club in Alberni went through the CAPA judge training course, the instructor said to us, when it came to birds, he said, if you're going to take a picture of a heron, it better be a good one. If you want to get a high score, well, here's a good one. Here's how you do it, right here. I absolutely am enthralled with the technical quality that the author's been able to pull off here. When it looks like it could be relatively low light, and it's extremely sharp, tack sharp, meaning a good shutter speed. I really appreciate the attention to detail. We're looking in the back feet here. You can actually see the color of the pads of the feet there, which the orange color, which balances, which kind of complements in a way the end of the beak. Composition wise, the whole structure of this image is very solid. Again, we're looking at rectangles, a large rectangle for a foreground, a smaller rectangle for a background. We've seen that before, and it really works. It gives real stability to this image. There's not much in the way of distractions around this image anyway, but look at that log in front. And that log is very important to this image. Certainly, I think it is anyway. It seems to be acting almost like a runway and propelling my eye follows along that log, and right at the end of it, boom, there we have the heron. A good example of when you get that precise moment, the decisive moment that some of us photographers talk about, right there. So it's almost like a continuum. Like this almost acts like one piece to me, if I like, of that one visual element there, which leaves enough room for the heron to move into on the right. Right? Even though you've got more space to the back of the bird, and according to the rules, you're supposed to be more in the front. But remember, we learn your rules well so you can break them properly. This is how you break it properly. I think there's a connection between those two. So it maintains the balance of that image very well. The only, again, and Phil used the word nitpick, me too. I'm not sure about that circular thing in the background on the horizon. That seems to be something my eye just kind of drifts to. And I'm not sure about the author. It needs to be there or not. It's something I would consider taking out just to see what it looks like. But a marvelous job on this bird. Thank you.
He got a mouse.
They could see you.
And I'll comment on this one, please, Murray. So in this image, the owl's intense stare or glare creates a mood in this wonderful capture. Tilted head and sloping eyelids add more tension. The owl's focus of attention is clearly the photographer, and I couldn't help but think at this point, I'm glad I'm not a mouse. Good sharpness brings out all the textures, patterns, and details in the feathers. The tight framing here ensures that there are no distractions and focuses in on the face. Eyes and beak form a triangle, also adding strength. And these eyes are riveting and pull me right into this image. Well done.
I'd like to comment on this image, please. So here we got a Canada goose and chick, and it is almost like a universal image of animal behavior, which spans, birds right up to mammals, right? Where you have the young needing the protection and the care of the adult, and the adult right there calmly to provide for the needs of the young. It's a marvelous capture. Difficult in some respects. You have to control the depth of field here very nicely, and you notice that it's so sharp that even the hair on the top of the head of the chicks there stands out nicely. Well exposed as well. You've got these heads are very difficult to get the whites controlled, and look at the detail in the whites there. You can very nicely done. And then of course you got to deal with the blacks. You get the whites right, then the blacks can be a little dark. But look at here, you got a little catch light in the eye there. You can see the rim of the eye as well. Very, very important that's done to make sure this image is well seen. It is absolutely gorgeous. Now, as far as the background goes, there's a couple of little things in there that I might take out because they're not adding anything. That little white spot in the back upper left corner, perhaps as a nitpick, but yeah, there's a universal appeal here. Hey, Mom, that's my goodness gracious. Thank you very much. Mm.
And I'll comment here, please, Murray. So this capture has highlighted wonderful detail in this beautiful woodpecker. There's good exposure and soft light with sharpness from head to tail. There's lovely highlights in the feathers outlining the head as well. So nice backlighting. There's soft bokeh with no distractions, further focusing our attention on this subject. And also, I find it an interesting pose with the woodpecker looking back over its shoulder. Again, I'm going to make a suggestion in terms of cropping, and I'm suggesting, or would suggest the author, that maybe try a crop on the bottom and on the right hand side. And the reasons for that is this would remove part of that out of focus branch right, which is a minor distraction. And the other thing it would do is it leads that woodpecker's gaze. Another suggestion might be, given this looks to be a crop, if you have a room in the original uncropped image, maybe consider more image left and top, which leads that woodpecker's gaze. And my last nitpick would be I see a red rope or line around the stump. One of the things I might try is if there's some of that left, if you choose to crop. If not, if you just desaturate that, it'll basically disappear and you'll lose the man-made stuff here. But this is a lovely capture of a colorful patterned woodpecker.
Mhm.
Oh, and I'm up again here. Red-billed blue magpie. So so this image to me is a beautiful palette of complementary colors. The mirror-like reflection of this image is a great capture. The low water level perspective provided by the photographer adds strength and prominent eye looking at the photographer. The room on the right side leads the bird's gaze. Beautiful soft pastels both in the background bokeh and the foreground water. And so one suggestion is I might consider lightening the bird, and as a brighter bird lessens the competition with the surrounding colors. And I might also that orange beak is prominent. I might brighten that eye a little bit to give prominence to this colorful feature. And I wanted to make a point that often when I look at bird images and some of mine and other images, quite often the eye is dark, and so if you can bring up the brightness in the eye, it strikes me it helps bird images, especially where they're almost black. Let's see. So this is a good job with this strong, colorful image.
I'd like to comment on this, please. Yeah, so here you have it looks like it's a mating pair of these beautiful fairy wrens. I'm not familiar with these birds at all, but I think it's been really an interesting composition here because they've got one up above the other. They're on a diagonal. Your eye flows down, and it's showing some behavior here too between the two. They're making sort of pointing towards the other one, likely making contact. So I think the lighting is appropriate. I think the focus is appropriate. I think it's all very good. It's a busy background. It's a busy environment here. And I think that, there is a school of thought out there that yes, that you can show the environment. I could just leave this image as it is and just enjoy the beauty of these birds. You got enough sharpness. They're very sharp, so you can enjoy the feathers, enjoy the environments in, or that C word comes up. Should you want to get a little closer to them, which is at all appropriate. I noticed there's a leaf above what likely is a female up above, and then there's a leaf beside the male on the bottom there, right? These two green males. If my eye goes down those leaves through the top bird over to the over to the bird on the right and back up again. You got a triangle going on in there with this diagonal, a couple of cross diagonal lines going on there. It's a marvelous structure in there. If you wanted to tighten up that itself, I think would make is a great possibility. Maybe like a squarish kind of crop to accommodate that as a possibility. If you want to leave it alone, it's a strong enough. I mean, the colors and prominence of the bird is quite sufficient to stand on its own. Yeah, so thank you for that. Lebanon. Hi, I'd like to make a comment on this one too. This is reminiscent of the butterfly and the bee there, the two insects coming in. Here we have two different birds, both in focus, and both relatively birds that frequent the area. Indeed, robins, I still love to photograph them, and so the hummingbirds too when I see them. This is a very timely capture that's not very easy, but this is showing a bit of a behavior as far as I can tell. I mean, this hummingbird's not about to bother the robin, yet still the robin's paying attention to it. It sort of begs the question, why is it doing that? What's going on here? Could be just birds when things move, they just pay attention just to make sure everything is ducky-doo. But no, these birds are around all over, and if you can get your camera going, this is a great way to do it. The composition is lovely. I think the lighting in this is interesting though. I've taken lots of shots like this where I believe when the original shot was done, it would have been like a white sky in the background, I would suspect, and then the authors appropriately tried to, which is what I would do anyway. The white skies try to use the cool it down and to make a little bluer, which is easier on the eye. So it's kind of like a backlit situation here. So to compensate for that, I definitely would be taking the brush tool that I have and lightening up the birds a bit, just a little bit more to make them pop out a bit. Dealing with that sky is a little bit trickier. I have tried to can play a little bit with adjusting the tone, which would change the hue a little bit on it, but it's a plain sky, so it needs to be treated just like a blank canvas behind it, just as I think they've done pretty much what you can do. A little nitpick here, you got a couple of little spots when you have a plain sky, you got to look around very carefully for spots, dust spots, whatever, and you got a couple of spots going on in here that the eye would go to. But yeah, get that hummingbird sharpened up a little bit, the robin a little bit. I think it would pop a bit. You could put a little more light on the branches as well, and that would strengthen that image. Now the birds are fairly small, and on the left-hand side, you could try doing a crop in here too, maybe to give the birds a little bit more prominence. But should you want to leave it as it is, I think that would be appropriate as well because the branches are fairly well stabled in a triangular shape. Yeah. So my takeaway on this one is if you want to learn how to shoot birds, I've learned you take shoot the birds that are around you. If it's seagulls, shoot seagulls. If it's pigeons, shoot pigeons. If robins, photograph robins. They're all beautiful birds, and here you get one that's got here. Look at you got something that's really special here going on. Yeah, great. Thanks very much.
Okay, Murray, and I'll comment in this one. Um, So the yellow-rumped warbler is always on the move and hard to capture. So job well done here. Just as a matter of interest, the last couple of days I've been down at our estuary and I'm throwing out hundreds of attempts to get this guy in flight. So they're difficult to capture with the movement. One of the big strength, I think, of this image is the purple leaves form a nice frame highlighting the bird. And a very good exposure brings out the colors and details in this lovely specimen here. And that the captured pose highlights the face and eye, and I think so. I was making comments about eyes earlier, and I think you can see some detail in the eye, and I think it really adds to images of birds. And another interesting thing, it looks to me like maybe that's pollen on the beak. So I suspect this warbler may have been nipping at the flowers there on the tree. My only suggestion with this one might be a bit of a crop on the left-hand side. And the reason I say that is some of these leaves on the left side that are not in focus can be a bit distracting and don't seem to add a lot to the composition. But if there was a decision to crop this image, it would be, you obviously want to maintain the wonderful leafy framing that are one of the big strengths of the image. So yet another, there's been a lot of wonderful bird captures in the show, and this is yet another lovely bird capture. Well done.
So that brings us to the end of the commented part of the show. Thank you very much, Phil and Ron. Those are just wonderful comments and suggestions for us. I'm going to go briefly now into the voting. This is for the people that logged on and voted, and we thank everybody for doing that. What we listed, like we did last year, is just the 5 pictures that had the most votes. And the one thing we did have this year was a lot of the votes were very close. We had the first place was by itself, but we had 4 tied for second, 5 for third, 4 for fourth, and again 5 for fifth. So in the top 5 places, if you were, we had 20 pictures, which is a bit different than previous years where we had a number of pictures that sort of stood out from the rest in your minds. So anyway, Denis and I tried to wonder whether we should actually show more, but we decided to keep with what we did last year, and it was the 5 pictures that had the most votes. And the one that was came out on top was Selena's Golden Crown Kinglet, and it had 8 votes. And then following that, these 4, they had 7 votes. The owl and the foliage by the owl by Rick and the foliage by Kevin. And then 2 by Adam, the Atlantic Puffin and the common myrrh. And they also, these 4 that I showed you, they are tied for second place. So that is the results of what you voted for for your favorite pictures. So Joan, did you want to take back over and close us out for the evening?
Yeah, just very, very briefly, because that was awesome. both Ron and Phil, thank you for all your comments, your suggestions. It was so thoughtful, your comments on everything, and I really appreciated that. I learned a lot just from listening to your comments tonight. And also, I'd like to thank Murray for putting all the slideshow together, and also Denis assisted with that and with the voting and the tech, and everybody that took part in the photo committee. Also, everybody who submitted photos and everybody that voted on photos. So thank you all for your participation. It was a wonderful photo show, and I won't keep you. It was a great night, and hopefully we will have just as beautiful photos next year. Thanks, everybody.
And I
Thanks,
have one comment to make. This is Teresa. I often choose from the photo show photos to include the photo that we pick each week in the e-news. And I just wanted to say, if you submitted a photo and based on the comments tonight, you think, oh, I'd like to resubmit it, having tried maybe something that these guys suggested, feel free to do that, because it would, if you think, oh, gee, I wish I had done that, and I decide to use your photo and you're going, oh, gee, I wish so just to let me know, if you want to do that, then you can just resubmit your photo with any changes you want to make, or any other photos that you didn't enter for consideration for use in a future e-news.
Good idea.
Great. Excellent. All right. Good night, everyone.